The wind howled across the barren plains of Kharad, carrying ash and the scent of burned metal. Fires flickered across the horizon, and jagged ruins clawed at the sky like broken teeth. Amidst the devastation, a small contingent of the Imperial Guard moved cautiously, scavenging the ruins of ancient Necron tombs. Captain Veyron led them, his eyes scanning the shattered city for anything of value, anything that could turn the tide of the endless war. And then he saw it. A jagged blade, its obsidian surface etched with twisting runes, glimmered faintly even in the gloom. Beside it lay a crystalline gauntlet, pulsing with a sickly green light, and a helm that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. Veyron had heard the stories, whispered among the scholars of Terra, artifacts of immense power and immense corruption. He knew the danger, but the hunger for victory burned hotter. Before we dive deeper, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love seeing the reach of this grimdark universe. And hey, if you're enjoying this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Warhammer 40K tales that dig into the dark heart of the galaxy. This is just the beginning. As Veyron reached for the blade, a subtle vibration ran up his arm, almost like it was calling to him. He hesitated, feeling the weight of 1,000 unspoken warnings pressing down on him. The gauntlet fused to his arm effortlessly, its crystalline structure bending as if it had always been part of him. When he lifted the helm, it was like a voice whispered directly into his mind, promising glory, power, and victory beyond imagination. The first battle after claiming these artifacts would test more than his skill. It would test his very soul. And yet, even in that moment, the allure of power was irresistible, blinding him to the danger lurking in the shadows of his mind. The battle came swiftly. Chaos cultists, drawn by the ruins' lingering warp energy, poured from the crumbled streets like a river of filth. Veyron gripped the blade, and for the first time, he felt a strange synchronicity. The weapon seemed to guide his movements, his soldiers' actions moving in harmony with an invisible hand. Every strike was precise, every maneuver preordained. Victory came easily, but in the aftermath, Veyron felt a shift, a whisper in the back of his mind, subtle at first, urging him to strike further, to punish those who hesitated, to seek control over everything. Power, he realized, was intoxicating, but already it had a price. As the smoke cleared, Veyron stood amidst the ruins, victorious yet uneasy. The artifacts pulsed faintly, as if hungry for more. His men looked to him with admiration, unaware that the man they hailed as a hero was beginning a slow descent into something darker. Something driven not by duty or honor, but by the insidious influence of the cursed relics. Captain Veyron's journey had only begun, and the galaxy around him had no idea of the horrors that were about to unfold. The first taste of victory was sweet. But the shadows of Kharad were long, and the artifacts were patient predators. Captain Veyron felt it first in his dreams, the helm's whispers weaving through his thoughts, soft at first, suggesting strategies, calling out weaknesses, but slowly turning darker. The voice began to question his men. Whisper suspicions that gnawed at the edges of his mind. The blade, once a tool of precision, now hummed with anticipation for blood, eager to be wielded with a more ruthless hand. And the gauntlet, the gauntlet tugged at his will, driving violent impulses when he was calm, twisting his hands into fists even in times of peace. The battlefield had rewarded him. But his nights were now arenas for a different kind of battle, the one within his own soul. Before we dive deeper, I want to know, if you were in Veyron's place, would you wield such power despite the warnings? Comment below with your choice, because the decisions of one man can shape the fate of thousands. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you never miss the next grim tale from the 41st millennium. These stories are as dark as the void, and you'll want to see every moment. The second campaign came quicker than expected. Chaos cultists, sensing weakness, had spread through nearby settlements, and Veyron's unit was dispatched to annihilate them. At first his command was flawless. Every order, every maneuver, flowed with a supernatural precision. The soldiers under him began to whisper of something unnatural, but they dared not speak too loudly. Their captain was becoming more than a man. He moved like a shadow, striking first, thinking later, his mind entwined with the artifacts that fed on his ambitions. By the time the battle was over, victory was complete, but so too was the first true stain of blood that had nothing to do with war and everything, to do with the voice in his helm. urging him further, always further. The corruption spread beyond his control. At night, the artifacts whispered secrets of power, planting doubts and fears that festered like poison. Veyron found himself questioning his men, turning over every hesitation, every glance, as potential betrayal. The gauntlet encouraged brutality, the blade demanded obedience, and the helm promised dominance over all. His soldiers began to fear him, not for his skill, but for the monster that was emerging behind his eyes. Friends and comrades became obstacles in the path to power, and the captain's humanity began to slip like sand through his fingers. Veyron's descent was irreversible. By the third campaign, he no longer resembled the man who had discovered the artifacts. His skin had grown pale and taut, his eyes flickered green beneath the helm, and his laughter, when it came, was sharp, hollow, and chilling. The line between his thoughts and the artifacts, whispers blurred until he could no longer tell who was controlling whom. The victories piled up, but so did the horrors. Captured cultists were executed without mercy. Allies who faltered even slightly were punished, and every battlefield became a stage for his growing tyranny. Power had not just corrupted him, it had reshaped him, turning Captain Veyron into something that was no longer human, yet no longer entirely weapon. As the galaxy continued its endless wars, the cursed artifacts lay in wait, patient, insidious, ready to find the next bearer. But Veyron's story was far from over. The Whispers had one final promise left: ultimate conquest, ultimate glory, but at a price that could never be repaid. The seeds of madness had fully taken root, and what remained of the man who had found the blade, gauntlet, and helm would soon vanish entirely beneath the shadows of power. The battlefield was a scene of apocalypse. Ash choked the air, twisted steel jutted from the ground, and the screams of the dying echoed across the ruins of Kharad. Volt. Captain Veyron stood at the center, a towering figure of pale flesh, green glowing eyes, and the cursed helm that had become one with his skull. The blade in his hand hummed with anticipation, eager to taste blood, while the gauntlet constricted around his arm like a living thing. His soldiers, once loyal men of the Imperial Guard, now marched in silence, eyes wide with fear, hearts beating with the dread that their leader was no longer wholly human. Veyron's mind was a storm, the artifact's whispers now fully merged with his own thoughts. Each command he gave carried the weight of madness, and every victory came with a scream of torment that echoed long after the battle ended. But before we dive deeper, take a moment. If you were watching this unfold on the front lines, what would you do? Could you fight alongside a man who was no longer entirely himself? Or would you turn against him? Comment your thoughts below, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss these grimdark sagas of power, madness, and war across the galaxy. This is the kind of story that stays with you long after the screen goes dark. The third campaign began with the enemy at their doorstep, Chaos Warbands intent on seizing the Tomb World's secrets. Veyron led the assault, his movements precise and terrifyingly swift. Every slash of the blade and punch of the gauntlet sent enemies sprawling into death, their cries drowned beneath the mechanical hum of destruction. But it wasn't only the enemy who suffered. His own soldiers trembled under his gaze, unsure whether orders or threats guided them. Veyron's paranoia had become a weapon, and the battlefield his stage. The helm whispered constantly now, promising ultimate power if only he would sacrifice a little more of his humanity. And he did. By the battle's end, Kharad Volt was a graveyard. Smoke and ash cloaked the horizon, the ground littered with the dead, both friend and foe. Veyron stood alone among the corpses, the artifacts feeding off the violence, their hunger insatiable. It was in this moment that a lone, tech priest of the adeptus mechanicus emerged from the shadows. With arcane machinery and ritual chants, the priest severed Veyron's connection to the blade and gauntlet. The captain collapsed to his knees, trembling and broken. The helm fell away, revealing eyes hollowed by obsession and madness. For a fleeting moment, the man beneath the curse resurfaced, staring at the ruins around him, realizing the horrors he had wrought. But the artifacts were not destroyed. The blade, gauntlet, and helm lay smoldering, awaiting the next soul foolish enough to claim them. Veyron's fall was complete, his mind fractured, his body scarred, and his name forever etched into the chronicles of war as a cautionary tale. Power, he had learned too late, was always a curse, and in the grim darkness of the far future, no one was safe from the seduction of the forbidden. If you've been captivated by the rise and fall of Captain Veyron, don't forget to hit like, subscribe and share this story with friends who love Warhammer 40K. Dive into the comments and let us know which artifact you dare or refuse to wield. The galaxy is vast, dark, and filled with power that corrupts, and we'll bring you more stories that prove it.